Welcome to Leadville Uncovered, a podcast interview series produced by Ultra Uncovered. Get ready for some great stories as we lead up to the 2025 Leadville Trail 100, the race across the sky. I'm Russell Ditsworth, and along with co-host Corinne Shalvoy, we hope you listen in all month as we catch insights from athletes testing their grit and determination in Cloud City. In this opening episode, we are sharing stories from three unique athletes. First up, we've got Pat Cade. Pat's already a 5-time finisher of the Leadville 100, and you can bet these trails feel familiar for him. He and his wife have made their home in Leadville, Colorado, where Pat coaches the track and cross-country teams at Lake County High School. Pat's best finish is a 5th place effort in 2023, where he ran 19 hours and 34 minutes. Next, we bring in Ultra-sponsored athlete Justin Grunewald. With over 25 results on Ultra sign-up, Justin's no stranger to the competitive ultra running landscape. Justin is an absolute beast from 50K to 100K, with wins at Never Summer, McDowell Mountain Frenzy, Tillamook Burn, and Antelope Island. And he has top finishes at Tarawera, Grindstone, Black Canyon, Canyons 100K, OCC, and the Bandera 100K. Justin recently debuted at 100 miles in the desert of Arizona at the Javelina 100, running 14 hours and 35 minutes. And just this weekend, placed second at the Tahoe Trail 50K, which is a qualifier for the Leadville 100. Last, we welcome Kris Rugloski. Kris has competed at the top in ultra running, high rocks, and obstacle course racing. She is the 2022 winner of the Grand Slam of ultra running, where she completed Old Dominion, Vermont 100, Leadville, and the Wasatch 100 in the same summer in record time. With 1,500-mile finishes, this 28-year-old runs like a vet in the sport, and she is no stranger to altitude as the 6th place High Lonesome 100 finisher from 2023 in under 30 hours. Hey, if you're liking the coverage, please rate and review. And if you'll be in Leadville for the race, come find us. We would love to say hi. With that, let's get to the interviews.
Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered and our special Leadville Uncovered series here. I'm Corinne Shalvoy, joined by Russell Ditsworth as always. And our next guest is Pat Cade. Pat, thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. So Pat, we want to learn a little bit about you and your background. The first question for you, how long you live in Leadville proper? How long have you lived in Leadville? And tell us a little bit about what you do professionally there in Leadville.
I lived in Leadville for 9 years, moved here from New York, grew up in Oregon. So, kind of having a great time up here. Right now, I am the head cross country and distance track coach at the high school. And I coach some adults online as well. And I do some math classes for the high school. I have a math PhD. So I teach a class or two a semester for a dual enrollment course with Colorado Mountain College and the high school. And I used to do, and I still do some IT help for the school as well.
Okay. How does one get from New York to Leadville, Colorado?
Well, okay. Me and my wife, I got my PhD in New York, upstate New York. I got my PhD at SUNY Albany. And me and my wife were having a great time up there. Life was going pretty well. But we needed a change. And she is from Glenwood Springs. So about, 2-hour drive from Leadville here. And so we had spent multiple years coming out to Glenwood. And in fact, 20 years ago, I came up to Leadville and had pizza here and dropped her off when she worked for Outward Bound. So she did some guiding sessions for Outward Bound over the summer. And so I've been coming up to Leadville since 2004, periodically throughout the summers. And so when we were thinking about where do we want to move to a place where there's skiing. We want to move to a place where there's mountains, great views, and Leadville just totally hit the spot.
So grew up in Oregon, 0 elevation. New York, 0 elevation. And now Leadville, 10,000 feet. So tell us a little bit about like your running background. And then what made you want to run the Leadville 100 for the first time in 2021?
Well, so my running background is I ran in high school. You can see some of the stuff behind me, some of the T-shirts and things I earned in high school. I grew up in Oregon and kind of lucked into the track team. I did lots of the sports growing up in middle school, and running was the one I was best at. And I had a really good time with my coach there. He was an amazing guy. He had met Prefontaine, right? All this kind of stuff, his infectious attitude. And so I really fell in love with running. And then when I went to college at Whitman College, I kept it going. And then when I went to graduate school, ran a little bit less. So kind of tried to stay active. Then I did a bunch of triathlons up there in New York. It was really great biking and running and all that type of stuff. And then when we moved to Leadville, before we moved to Leadville, me and my wife took a little trip around the world. We did 10 and a half months around the world. And our time in Bolivia and Peru was amazing. I remember going for a run in Puno at 12,000 feet and just being like, oh, this isn't that bad. This is fun. I like this cool, clean, high elevation air. This is awesome. And so when we finally settled down, we weren't scared of Leadville. We weren't scared of the altitude. When you move here, it's just a totally different lifestyle than New York, even upstate New York, right? It's so chill, it's so laid back, and it's so much about exploration and getting outside. And so I continue to try to do triathlons. It's not as much fun as getting out in the mountains and climbing up and doing the hikes and doing the runs. I did a few mountain bike events as well. I did the Leadville 100 mountain bike in 2017. And then in 2018, I won Silver King. So I did the back-to-back 50-mile bike, 50-mile run. So when I won that, I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this because I'm an okay biker. So that really excited me, the ability to kind of get out there in the mountains and run longer. And then so working in the school district, this is kind of what people do. Like a lot of the locals do the 100. It's the thing that shows up every summer. The town gets full. Everyone gets a bit excited. Parents are out there. You volunteer at the aid stations. It just becomes a whole town thing. And I was the middle school cross country coach at the time. And so a lot of the parents were doing it and other people talked about it. And I just got really inspired and excited. And actually the first year I did it was 2019, right before COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got excited. I wanted to do something that I was scared of. Biking was scaring me, but not in a good way. I don't like to crash. And the run, something that I could start and fail at was really exciting. Something that big and adventurous and epic was really cool. And I loved it and done it every year since.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you for that correction. And I'll modify a future question here because I don't know what your finish time was in 2019. So now you're sitting on 4 finishes and going for a finish number 5.
So
5 finishes.
5 finishes, going for 6.
Going for 6. Okay. Well, I know at least 4 of them are big buckles.
They all are.
They all are. Even in 2019. There you go. Oh,
so
awesome.
People know what is a big buckle, Russ.
So a big buckle is when you finish the Leadville 100 in under 25 hours, and the overall cutoff is 30 hours. And honestly, most of the participants, I sometimes there's a 50% DNF rate or a 40% DNF rate. So if you're finishing with a big buckle, you're finishing in the top 50, 60, 80 runners every single time, and to do it year over year is a feat. And what I noticed was there was a progression from I was looking at 2021, 2022, and 2023. And it was like a 2-hour improvement from 2021 to 2022, like 23 hours down to 21 hours, and then down to 19 hours. But then last year, and you had mentioned this to me at the aid station that we both volunteered at last year, you had a few problems, and I was wondering if you could tell that story for everybody. Maybe there's some learnings for others around your 2024 experience.
Well, sure. In 2024, was training really well. I had a really great build-up. Some of the other years, I've had little injuries here and there, nothing that made me worry about starting the race, but not the perfect build-up. And last year was a pretty good buildup. I was pretty happy with how things were going, and I was ready to run pretty fast, and I just picked the wrong shoes. I wanted something really quick. I wanted some shoes that were really going to give me, light, fast, ready to go out there and nail it. And by kind of outward bound on the way back, I could barely walk on the balls of my feet. Like my heels were fine. So if I kind of duck walked or like hit my heels first, I could get myself up the hills and everything. And so from bottom of power line for the last 20 some odd miles, I would sit to let my feet rest for about a minute and then try to run for 10. So it was kind of a run walk situation all the way in, just really trying to get myself to a strong finish, because I was, still wanted to do well. And I, as the cross country and track coach, I knew I had a bunch of kids showing up. I think there's a photo from it. I have somewhere around here. Not easy to get to. It's like 20 kids showed up for the finish line for me. And so just really wanted to push through kind of that discomfort and the pain of my feet, as it's just, the whole bottom of my foot's numb. It's just like it's stabbing pain. But you tough it out. Everyone goes through things during these races. And unfortunately, that's what I went through last year.
Dang. I had a similar experience, but it was the opposite. It was the heels of my feet and not the balls of my feet when I ran Leadville. And so Russ and I both have not big buckles, but regular buckles, unfortunately, for the race. And I just noticed that we last talked to a doctor and now we're talking to a math PhD. So feel highly underprepared for these conversations. But I think it also is interesting because there are so many very highly educated people that run ultras. And I'm curious if you think that kind of that, your mathematical brain, is that a benefit to you in an ultra? Do you feel, is it, I guess, does your approach play into kind of just how you think about things in general?
I think so. I mean, everyone brings their own strengths to these races, right? But I in thinking back, even my math professors all the way along have been very active, adventurous people. I think there's something about the mixture of kind of planning and logic that comes into doing math problems, as well as, especially with a PhD, there's a level of inspiration and artistry in getting your math PhD. Like you are, in order to do new research, in order to kind of push the bounds of human knowledge, you need to be thinking differently than anyone else has really thought about the problem before. Sometimes it's just the grunt work, but oftentimes you need that inspiration. And so there's an interesting mix in mathematics, I think, with PhD mathematicians especially, where you kind of have the right tool set in order to get out in wilderness and feel comfortable with doing big, exciting things, planning for them, making sure you don't miss your aid station food or all those logistical details, but also the vision to get out there and do something big and exciting. I mean, I think almost all of the math teachers at the high school have either done the 100 or are coaches of endurance sports. So it's a common thing to see for sure.
Lots of math and engineers in ultra running. I'm an engineer background, so I like that. The other thing that I loved hearing in your answer was, you had this major why of like why you wanted to continue to finish to the end. You had people waiting for you. You were grounded in your why. As you go into 2025, I'd love to hear what your goals are, because you have some great competitive finishes as well. Like the 2023 finish in 19 hours was for 5th place. So like, can you tell us a little bit about your goals for 2025 and if you have the same or maybe a different why?
Sure. My goals leading into this race are really just to do. No race is perfect, right? There's every race you look at, even 2 years ago with the 19 hour finish, 19 and change, in 5th place. There's still things that I want to do better and I want to go back and improve on. You can't plan on temperature of the day or the people that show up in terms of placing in time as much, but I really would like to get in the 18s. It's a little silly, but the 2019 finish was 22 hours. So I have all 5 finishes are in 5 different hour brackets. So I don't want a 24 and change. I would like an 18 and change. There's some nice round numbers there. I also have a finish in the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, the teens, and the single digits. So I'd like to double up on the single digits as well. So kind of based on what happens during the race, I think a 19 is kind of what I'll be pacing for and what I'll be shooting for. But definitely a top 10. I'll be counting where people are. And, I had that year that I got 5th, big gap to 4th, hour plus, I think. And part of what makes that run special to me is how I was able to push through the last 20 miles. That year I didn't have any feet issues, so it wasn't quite as hard, but just having that strength. And I went from 8th place to 5th place in the last 10 miles. And, that kind of feeling good at the end of a race is really inspiring and powerful. And I want to get that feeling back again. And as for my why, I feel like being a inspiration and so I don't have my own children. And so my runners are really, I don't want to say legacy too much, but I do think that they are the people that I can mold and the next generation in the future. And I want to be an inspiration to them. I want them to think like, oh, coach went out there and worked super hard. And I saw how bad he looked at mile 70 and he still finished super fast. And it really matters a lot to me to be a inspiration to those kids and to see how many show up and ran this morning. We met this morning at 7:00. I have, 10 kids that show up in the mornings, and that kind of dedication can show up in the rest of your life. And I want to be able to be that kind of role model for those kids.
Okay, so the high school that you coach for is Lake County, right? The Lake County Panthers. Are we going to see Lake County Panther purple out on the course? Where are we going to see the Lake County crowd on the course? What should we be saying to them to pump them up? Tell us about who's going to be out there on the day.
Well, I won't have any kids pacing me. I don't like having pacers, but there'll be lots of kids at the aid stations. Several of the kids work for C4. They're really inspired by helping out. So I see a lot of the kids taking up trash at Winfield. I always get help from C4, not from the main aid station workers, because I know the girl and her mom that work there. Just go Panthers, right? The girls cross country squad got second in state last year, and we had a bunch of graduates. We want to keep the tradition going, and I see a lot of them on houses along the way, right? And so at the start, there's a house kind of up on the corner of the start. So last year they all got up to cheer me on for the start. So there were a whole bunch of girls in their pajamas up on a balcony yelling and screaming. It was pretty fun.
Okay, so the runners that are out there, the crews that are out there, you see purple, you see Lake County High School, yell out, "Go Panthers."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's a incredibly inspirational why. You just mentioned, do you not use pacers at all? Or is it just not the kids on the team that are pacing?
So I went through a series. My first year, 2019, I had three of my 4 pacers were boy high school cross country runners, and they did a great job. They were awesome. Then COVID happened, right? And so most of those boys graduated. So I didn't really have any. Well, one of the boys came back, and so I had him do it in 2021. And I realized that I get out of race mode when I have pacers, especially ones I know well. So one of the athletes was told to bring a lot of questions. And so he asked me these great questions. Like I remember specifically, he's like, how do you think female gymnasts would do at the male gymnast events? Just like stuff like that. And I was like, I was so interested in answering the question and talking about sports and talking about athletics and all this type of stuff. And I kind of got out of the race mode. and I kind of just started chatting and talking with the kids because it's awesome to do, and it's my favorite time of day is when we have practice, and so it started to feel like practice and having a good time. So I had more adults in 2022, and I can't remember if that's the year they didn't allow Pacers over Hope. If that was the first year, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked coming back over Hope without a pacer, and so I gave it a test 2 years ago, and I just liked it better. I really did. You carry a bit more stuff, but my crew was great. My wife is an awesome. She's the assistant principal at the high school, so she's very organized. She's very good at that stuff.
Yeah, shout out your wife for us because she's the assistant principal, and then the rest of the crew volunteering at Resurrection Aid Station for the Leadville Trail Marathon. It was a group of the local high school crew and then the Castle Rock Run Club crew. So shout out the principal and shout out your wife, the assistant principal.
Yeah, they did great. They're the race series does a really good job, especially recently, of reaching out to the community, reaching out to the schools. I wasn't able to be there for the 50 turnaround course, but the Nordic squad always does that. And the head Nordic coach, who's also a math teacher at the high school, he always runs that aid station. And now my wife wants to keep running that Resurrection Aid Station for a while. It's really cool how well we've connected with the schools and the race series.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so I have a question. Mathematically speaking, have you dug into the numbers on Leadville in terms of, like, if you're going to improve your time down to that 18, where do you think that is going to come from? Like, what sections do you have to optimize or kind of change your strategy on?
Well, I think in general, for me specifically, it's hope. I think for a lot of people, it's making sure that you're running on the runnable sections. I think there's a lot of the CT, maybe not directly out of Twin, but a lot of that, even though it's rolling, you got to be running that. The little uphills, you got to kind of push over them. I'm a really good runner. I'm really good at settling in a solid speed. If it's between -3% and 3%, I'm rolling. Anything above that or over that, I really get a bit tentative, not as confident. And so for me personally, to get that sub 19, I got to do hope more. And so there's been a big push this summer for my coach to get me out there. And it's not a far drive. I just, want to get comfortable with every rock. I fell the other day on hope. I'm like, okay, I know that one. I got to go slow down on that turn so that I can feel like I can push the downhills a bit. And, there's a couple runnable sections on honestly both sides. There's a couple switchbacks where if you're ready to focus on it, you can be a lot faster. So compared to my competition, for sure, I've done all the splits. Where do I lose my time? I lose my time on Hope.
And have you changed or modified? I'm sure you have changed your strategy on the shoes, but what have you landed on that's going to be both fast and supportive enough or cushioned enough?
Well, luckily, shoes have kind of made that change for me. I feel like a lot of these tempo trainers have really the Rebel V4, I think is what I'm going to do the race in this year. And then I used to do it in the 1080, and that's gotten a bit heavier. So I'll have a pair of the New Balance 1080s for backup because they come in extra wide, so I can get a super extra wide for the end of the day. If I'm having that foot issue, I can have something that's got a nice stack height, especially underfoot, under the ball of your foot, not just the heel, as well as has that wide platform. And it's not a technical. It's really not a technical race, so I don't worry about trail shoes. I did do sections in trail shoes early on for training, and I didn't feel a difference. I kind of like a lighter shoe if I can get away with it.
Well, we noticed that you've done Leadville a number of times, and you've got some other results locally, things like that. But now that you've done Leadville so many times, is there an ultra race or another race out there that's on your bucket list to complete?
I think Javelina. I think I would really like to do Javelina. I think that's a race that I think the running
like 4 times. So
well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I think the runnableness. I'm not great in the heat, but I'm not bad either. I think that would be. I think the loop course would be really good for me mentally as well. I like that kind of thing. I run the same trails all winter long. I mean, there's not a lot that gets groomed here or packed out that you can run in the winter in Leadville, but it doesn't bother me to do the same stuff. I think javelina would be a great one. I get poison oak and poison ivy rashes pretty bad, so there's a lot. Part of the reason I left the Oregon. There's not a lot. There's Western states and some of those other big ones would be cool, but I'd be nervous.
Definitely no canyons then. Don't go to canyons.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So
just
Javelina's great
your
because
golden ticket at Javelina.
it's so runnable. If you like, since you said you like to run a lot, I mean, it's a extremely like fun runners type course. And you probably saw that Riley Brady wore Vaporflies on the course, so super shoes can even be worn out there for the right person. Very cool. Okay, we have a couple of just final questions to wrap up here. One is, you're not going to have your pacers out there, so you're not going to be utilizing anyone to mule for you, which I think is a fascinating subject in and of itself. We could do a whole other podcast on it, but there's been discussion about like, should there be pacers in elite races and not? And also, you're kind of a fascinating case study in that you learned just through, kind of having to experience both situations that you do better without a pacer. Sometimes I wonder, do they know if they always use pacers? Do they really know if they would be better or not without them? And so that's interesting. So we were going to ask you what you were looking forward to having muled, but since you're not going to be looking forward to anyone muling for you, is there something in particular that's part of your like nutrition or hydration or like a special treat or something that you're looking forward to consuming during the race?
Coca-Cola is kind of the treat when I get to places, right? Like when I go to aid station, that's what I look forward to. Like the first thing I go to is I go grab a little bit of Coke. And I don't usually have a lot of soda normally. And so it's a pretty nice treat on the day. My nutrition's pretty simple. So I pretty much have just they had goos the first year and they worked for me. And so I basically just used goos since. I used Spring for a little while as well to kind of cut back and forth. But in the last 2 years, I think I've just used goo Roctane gels the entire time, and Coke. Nice. So the Coke's the kind of the nice thing that kind of cuts in there. I've tried to go a little bit lighter and lighter with my pack. Definitely, it's always a little bit of a fight with my wife as it gets cold. Like, oh, you sure you don't want to put in a jacket or throw your gloves back in? But that is the one negative, right? Is having to carry all my own stuff.
All right, we're going to wrap up with a final question here. What are you going to do to celebrate a successful performance at Leadville Trail 100 in 2025?
I'll get a pizza from High Mountain Pies.
Nice.
Like that's even big long training runs, right? If I have a good one of those or need something, get pizza from there. When I got a gift from a couple of the kids after their senior year of track here that just finished, and it was a gift certificate to High Mountain Pies.
Perfect.
So
what's on the pizza? What's on your pizza of choice? Does it change?
I get the carnivore. I used to get the deluxe, which I just all the toppings. I got the little soggy now, so mainly it's just all the meats. Nice. Plain pepperoni is what we make at home when we make pizza, so that's pretty nice and clean and fun. But yeah, all the toppings. I like lots of toppings.
Well, Pat, we are wishing you the best of luck in the final weeks of your preparation and during the event. We'll be out there, so we'll be rooting for you. Really excited and happy that you were able to join us today. So thank you so much for joining Ultra Uncovered and Leadville.
Awesome. It was great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Pat. Great to meet you.
Welcome back to a special edition of Ultra Uncovered. We've got Leadville Uncovered. I'm Russell Ditsworth, joined as always by Corinne Shalvoy. And today our special guest is Justin. Welcome to the program. So we're going to dive right into some questions about Leadville. You're racing the 2025 edition of the Leadville Trail 100. And I'm just curious, this is not your debut 100. You debuted at Javelina last year, but why Leadville?
because I couldn't get a golden ticket and get into Western States. It was kind of my backup plan. And not really. I'm super excited for Leadville, but it's kind of my version of the poor man's Western States.
Poor man's Western States. Okay, so talking, Justin, I mean, again, great to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this. Leadville has obviously become, I mean, it's been a classic, it's been a staple for a long time, but it's gotten a lot more visibility, I would say, you know, after last year with the record being broken by David. And every year we do see a pretty competitive field line up. So going back to kind of Javelina, is there anything you learned from Javelina that you're going to be taking into Leadville this year? Or what in general have you learned about yourself and 100 milers?
Yeah, I mean, Javelina was like a great training block. It went well through like 60 miles. Then I had some very strange issues, so won't have that again. But that's like a mechanical thing, like overfilled my pockets because I was using my pack for ice. And then I think the thing I'll take with is like there's the Roche style of racing, like gun it, red line, threshold, blow up, but blow up only enough to be caught, versus there's the slow and steady wins the race. And it'll be a mix of kind of that and see where it all ends up. I mean, obviously you have to get through 100 miles first of all, but I think we've seen, as we saw at Western, a lot of guys blew up. Chris, Caleb, Killian did not. I guess Jeff didn't really, but there was tons of carnage, and that's just how these hundreds are run nowadays. Leadville being fast road race, more or less, other than bits of it. So should be fast and furious.
Yeah, so some of your ultra teammates have had some great success at Leadville. Have you talked to any of them? JP's won it. Kyle Pietari's done really well there. Have you talked to any of them about things that you might do?
Kyle's actually going to be pacing me. Got that finalized today. So whether he does the full 38 or a part of it is TBD, pending kind of how it works in his schedule. And then but he's a wealth of knowledge, great dude. Super excited to have him on my team. And JP and I just never have serious enough conversations to talk about anything real. We kind of just mess with each other.
Nice. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your training. I mean, it seems like you've been very, very consistent as of late, and you're grabbing all kinds of crowns and trophies up in Boulder, which is no small feat to be doing that. Do you write your own training? Are you self-coached? And tell us a little bit about like what your approach has been to preparing for Leadville.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the luxury, I would say, of having a ton of great coaches historically. Amanda Basham, my partner, has coached me intermittently for the past like 3 years. Right now, at this moment in time, I'm self-coached. Before Amanda, I had David Roche. Before that, I had Mario Fraioli. So I'm kind of taking a mixture of all of the things and seeing where it leads me. But kind of this week, as you said, crowns in Boulder, I think it's a good way to absolutely fry yourself. So trying to find race pace, like 9-minute pace, which 9-minute pace at Leadville gives you the 15-hour magical mark, which will be broken in the next, maybe this year, maybe next year. I mean, everything's a little weather dependent, but there's a good, I mean, if Jim Walmsley ran Leadville, he would run what he runs at Western, 14:10. Yeah, so
14x.
It's been, lots of great runners have run it. I think David's the first one to shotgun it, and now we're seeing people shotgun Western, run up the escarpment versus hike it, and it'll just get faster and faster. Not saying that's what I'm gonna do, but lots of time will be taken off all these course records.
Do you find yourself a pretty good responder to altitude?
Yeah, we live at like 8,000 feet, so almost all my training currently, I've been trying not to go down to Boulder. So running between like here and Netherland, we have this thing called Twin Sisters Peak in our backyard that gets up to like 9. Like out our door is Leadville minus 2,000 feet. And then it's piecing maybe finding one extra hemoglobin molecule to get me 2,000 feet higher. I don't have any tricks. I mean, I'm a physician by trade. Maybe I'll buy some beets and start eating them, but I'm not going to do heat suits and that stuff. I don't have the energy for that. So I'll try to find some gimmick to boost my confidence. Maybe take some iron for a week or something.
I mean, I think it's definitely lower on the performance gains pyramid, right? Like make the main thing the main thing. You're
Yeah,
doing the
yeah. And I
training, that's
run
the main thing.
lots of dirt roads up high, and that's kind of what I do, I guess. And I think I've gotten way better on the technical aspect of it, but it used to be my Achilles heel. Like I'll train with Chris Meyer, who's second at Western, and he just toasts me on downhills, and it's infuriating. But then we hit a climb, and I get to slap him back, so it's it works out in the end.
I was really jealous, Justin, because we both ran Never Summer last year, and you ran fast enough to avoid the entire storm altogether. And I was out back there, like dying in this like massive rainstorm. But like, even thinking back to like that, that's obviously a lot more technical than Leadville is. But like, do you take some confidence from performances like that at Never Summer for,
Yeah, I mean, definitely, especially last summer is much like this summer. I haven't been up high, which is the life of having kids and another professional trail runner who's training for CCC in the house. But before Never Summer, I didn't get above 9,000 feet, I don't think, and it was fine. I mean, it's obviously a little slower. My only issue there was I Supermaned off like the top peak and had a little scare, but other than that, it went smoothly, no like altitude issues. But they can hit you. I mean, I was out on Pawnee Buchanan Loop a couple summers back and got like acute altitude sickness, vertigo, sat there for like 5 hours and thought I was gonna die. Amanda was pregnant and searching the mountain for me.
Like, yeah, crazy.
So anything can happen, but I think then I used to go to Minnesota a lot more. That's where I still work, but I have the summer off of going to Minnesota, so I've been staying high.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I think at one point, Justin, you and I had talked about you were stepping back a little bit from just full time, being a full time professional. Is that still the case? And just kind of how is that going with allowing you to get in more training and kind of live a little bit more the life of a professional athlete?
Yeah, this year I'm half time in the hospital, which has been awesome. I do a little like telemedicine where I cover rural hospitals in Minnesota actually, but my results this year are awful, so it clearly hasn't panned out. I have like two DNFs and I finished a rinky-dink 50K, but I shouldn't say rinky-dink, it was an awesome event by Mad Moose, but the fitness is there. I mean, when I was back in Minnesota, Afton Alps are kind of the premier trails for the Minneapolis people, and I ran faster than I ran as like a mid 20-year-old. So the fitness is all there. I just gotta get over the brain piece of it, or like wearing enough clothes to not freeze at canyons, which is always 100 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
snow at
2 years
canyons?
before was the hottest race of my life. This year was the coldest race of my life.
Totally. I was there that year. It was so hot. Graham just about died. I think you were in the same race with him, and he just about dropped from the heat, but he didn't. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and again, we could have heat at Leadville. You could have rain and storms. It's like very unknown. So we're about 4 weeks out. We wanted to ask a question around kind of how you and Amanda both balance racing and looks like you guys are not doing the same races. Was this year in particular, was that an intentional choice? Kind of how do you guys decide what to race and what to crew and what to go to?
Yeah, we've done a little more calculated efforts the past 2 years with a lot of, I think our culmination of everything was I was doing CCC, she was doing UTMB this like 2.5 years ago now or 3 years ago, and it just went very poorly having two kids and trying to race massive races. But now our kids are older and a lot more self-sufficient, so we toy with the idea of getting back to that. But she's doing this worked out really well because I'll do Leadville, then I'll be beat up, and she'll head to France, and I can be a solo dad for 2 weeks while she gets in her training on the course there. So it just works better for us. Like I'm popping over to Tahoe. I fly out Saturday night. I fly back Sunday night. The race is Sunday morning. So I think I'm there less than 24 hours. But it just works better with getting training in and supporting each other because my family's in Minnesota, her family's in Oregon, and we do not have a nanny for the summer. So, but she gets up early and runs. I run after. I just have to dodge the thunderstorms, which might be there at Leadville. So good practice.
So is Amanda going to bring the kids out to Leadville? Do you have, who's your crew chief? And you mentioned that Kyle Pietari is going to be pacing at least a section of it.
Yeah,
Who
Amanda
else
right
do you
now
have
and the
on
two
your crew?
girls. I've toyed with the idea of getting my parents to fly out or my mom or both, whatever, but I haven't committed to it. Like, I mean, you were at Never Summer. She crewed me solo with two kids and an off-road stroller, and I think she got more applause.
Did she hike?
Oh,
Did she
I mean,
hike
she
them
was all
up
over
to
the place,
Clear
wherever
Lake?
you could crew. But I think,
Yeah, yeah. There
yeah,
was a
with the
spot where you had
stroller
to
and two
hike like a
kids,
mile in.
all I heard from the kids was how awesome mom was and how fast she was running the stroller up the mountain after the race. And that was kind of the sentiment at the finish line. No one cared about my race. It was more how impressive Amanda was.
Well, your race was impressive too, but yes, crewing at Never Summer is a feat,
Yeah,
and
and
with
I mean, it was
kids,
super.
absolutely. Leadville will be a lot easier. There's not very many places to
Yeah,
go, and it's
yeah.
right
And
off the
at Never
highway.
Summer, like
So
all of a sudden I'd get into an aid station and my kids were like with a whole new family. Like the support of ultra running was at its essence there, which is really special and makes it fun because they get to socialize and steal candy and stuff.
oh, that's amazing. The other question that I was curious on, Justin, I loved your podcast a couple years ago or a year and a half ago or so with Dylan Bowman ahead of Tarawera. You were talking a lot about kind of your abstaining from alcohol journey at the beginning of that year. And it was before Tarawera, and that resulted in a second place behind Dan Jones there. I'm just curious where you're at with that journey. And
Yeah, I mean, it is a journey. That's it. I think my biggest learning point was I've like reintroduced beer into my life, not near the amount of drinking I had been doing, which is way better and way healthier. I can say I still, maybe I've had one hangover in the last 2 years, which was probably because I just had a beer after running too far and got a headache. But finding like a happy medium, recalibrating, taking breaks essentially. So like it's a weird thing. I work night shift in the hospital, so I suffer from random bouts of insomnia, and then if you drink beer, you get terrible sleep, so it doesn't really help, but it makes you tired at least. So it's still trial and error, but I'll enjoy like a post-race beer as opposed to six post-race beers. So I think I found a good place.
Okay, so again, this is just kind of a random smattering of questions, but we also just wanted to vocalize that we both really love how you keep Gabe's light and spirit in the public eye, and while honoring your family and your girls. And we were particularly curious what you think that Gabe would think of you running 100 milers.
Oh man, we kind of had like a verbal agreement that she was going to pursue like track stuff through whatever Paris was. Then pandemics happened and the timeline all got mixed up. But she hates or hated slow running, like what you would call trail running. Like if it's not 6 minute pace or faster, it's probably not running in her vernacular. But she was always super supportive. I mean, my training back then, this would be 6, 7 years ago, would be the night before I ran my first 50K. I think we did 3 by a mile at 4:50 pace as she was tuning up for a 5K. And then the next morning at 5 a.m. or whatever, I was out at Afton running a 50K. And that it just worked and it was enjoyable. It's very different, but being like a team as Amanda and I have ourselves, it means a lot and makes it more meaningful, as I'm sure you and your family have. But she's always like out there with me, whether, like I told you, I had an atrocious Pawnee Buchanan loop where I was waiting to not survive the loop, and all of a sudden, like a mountain goat comes up and gives me a nudge, and like who knows why that happened. But it's saying keep going.
Amazing. So cool.
Yeah, I definitely believe that they're always still out there watching.
Okay, we just have a couple more things. One is tell us a little bit about like your thoughts on what you decide to race. Notice that you have very few repeat races of doing the same race over and over again. Is that intentional and kind of, obviously you were mentioning Western States was a goal, but how do you decide like what you're going to race, and do you not like to run races multiple times?
Yeah, a guy I respect massively and look up to, Tyler Green. I paced him at Javelina a long time ago now. He was second place pre golden ticket stuff, but his kind of MO at that time was run a race, see the scenery, take it in, don't repeat it. And I think that's where he got stuck, not doing Western again. I'm sure it's easy just to do over and over and over, but the beauty of trail running is seeing new landscapes, new places, and I think that's what really drew me to it. So I may like double back with the Black Canyon this February, just because it's a different type of race than the last time I did it. But I really don't like to repeat races, and like frankly, it doesn't always work out the best. But I've rarely run a race where I've seen more than like 5 kilometers of it beforehand, and I'm notoriously bad for looking at even race course profiles. So like when I went to Tarawara, my crew, Sean, took me out on a 2 mile out and back, the first 2 miles of the course, and that was all I'd see. The rest of it was coming at me new on race day. And it's just a fun way to do it. Not, I mean, as a professional, it's not what anyone else does.
Tarawera needed to be a golden
What?
ticket
Sorry?
when you were there. I said Tarawera
I
needed to
know
be a
my
golden
work
ticket while you
schedule
were
hates
there.
golden tickets typically.
But that is a little bit unconventional where we're seeing so many people going out and doing recon on the courses for a long time and making sure they've seen every step. And that's more and more. So it's kind of a refreshing thing to be like, well, I like to just see it new on race day and have that experience be the first experience. I think it's kind of unique and different.
Yeah, and I mean, one of my points is I like to do this sport to see new places. Like it's what a glorious sport to get to do. It's not like we're running around a track. Granted, there's some incredibly beautiful stadiums like Monaco and Paris, and I guess the Eugene, whatever it's called now. But so they all have their different elements, but you're still running around a track.
Yeah, I'd say Colorado has some of the nicest tracks around in terms of the scenery, but yeah, you're right. It is nice to see the trails and things like that. Okay, we're going to get to our final couple of questions here, and we've already established that you've got some crew. We've established that you've got a pacer here. Leadville famously allows muling. So what I want to know is, what is your piece of gear that you are most looking forward to having Kyle mule for you?
I honestly, it's really hard. I think taking the vest off would just be really nice. I've actually doing this sport for way too long. I've started like messing around with things, like modifying my vest, making things more efficient, which I should have been doing a long time ago. But like you have kids and a job and all these other things, like it goes by the wayside. But just taking that vest off, it's 5 to 10 pounds lighter all of a sudden, and then feeling like you can really move. And then going from there, I muled for Ryan Montgomery last year, and I know like it just has to be a great feeling, not in just passing the bottle back and forth versus constantly carrying it.
So did you carry his entire other vest, or did you just carry his gear and then handle
Yeah,
stuff?
I had my vest with my bottles, carried 2 Hydro Flask can bottles, one with like electrolytes and fuel and one with water, and then Ryan carried some calories, and then I'd like just the actively eaten calories, I guess, and I'd carry the rest of it. So I think probably carrying less than 90 grams of carbs on Ryan's body, and I had the rest, like headlamps, everything, whatever else.
Yeah. Nice. That was awesome.
Love it.
Okay, and our last question for you here. We are 4 weeks out, so I know that this still may be formulating, but if you can answer and want to, what will you do to celebrate a successful performance at Leadville in 2025?
I mean, I'm pretty simple. Probably if my parents don't come and watch the kids here, just give Amanda and the girls a big hug and be like appreciative of the process that got me there. Like running is a lot to me. Obviously, we get on these big stages for performance, but every time a training block ends, I kind of get like sentimental and like sad about it because you put a lot of yourself into it. And I think like I had a 110-mile week last week and felt phenomenal. And then yesterday I did a little like tune up for this Tahoe race, and I was like, I got to cancel the race. Like I can't even run. So, but it's just constantly like the ebbs and flows, the ins and outs, and just like look back on every mile that got me there, and probably not be able to sleep all night and sit in a shower with a bunch of burns on my back from my pack, and maybe cry a little.
Have a good
Yeah.
cry. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, Justin, we are looking forward to seeing you out in Leadville. Good luck this weekend out in Tahoe. Hope you have a great time out there, and we really appreciate you joining
Yeah,
us.
thanks so much for having me. And then I guess I have no idea what the start list is, so it's always a surprise. Maybe they release it a week or two early.
Just tune in to the Ultra Uncovered podcast, and you'll hear from a number of the people that are lining up. So.
Perfect. Yeah, I hope it's some buddies that I can have long, joking conversations with.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably a few out there. So
Perfect.
yeah. Best of luck, Justin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Ada, Amanda, and the family.
I will.
Take care.
Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered. I'm Russell Ditsworth, joined as always by co-host Corinne Shalvoy. Today we have a special episode of Leadville Uncovered, and our guest today is Kris Rugloski. And correct me if I'm wrong on the pronunciation there, but Kris, you are a past finisher of the Leadville 100, and we would love to talk to you about this race coming up this year because you are on the start list again for 2025. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, pronunciation pretty much spot on. It's Kris Rugloski, but I've heard a lot of versions of that. So honestly, yours was pretty close. Yeah, I did it back in 2022, and I did a lot of 100-milers in 2022. And I also moved to Colorado that year. And so doing Leadville then, it was my favorite race of the year. Probably, it's definitely the year that, up until that point. And it was enough of a highlight for me to think like, I want to come back to here. And now that I live here in Colorado, it's kind of my local race. So yeah, I've been planning to come back ever since that first time, and I'm really excited to be back this year.
I love it. And what you mentioned there is back in 2022, you participated in the Grand Slam of Ultra Running, which consists of a few 100-milers across the United States and finishes with the Wasatch 100 in the fall. So you completed Old Dominion, Vermont, Leadville, and the Wasatch 100. So Western states would be included in there and could be used as one of the four. But that year, you were the champion of the Grand Slam of Ultra Running. So tell me, you finished all of them. I think the total time was under 100 hours. So you averaged under 25 hours per 100. What about that experience was something that was interesting to you to try to complete?
So much about that was I had found out about the Grand Slam. I guess I'll kind of go back a little bit. I did my first 100-miler in 2019. And after doing that one, I was like, I want to do this again, but I did not want to do it in that same scenario. This was in South Texas. It was the Habanero 100, middle of August, starts at noon. And it was like, by the end of the day, it was a great experience. And it was it very much gave me a lot of confidence and a lot of yeah, it just like gave me a great experience. But I decided like never again. I'm never doing that one again. So I started looking into like, okay, I want to do, out of state. Where do I want to go with this? And I did that one in August. The following year, I did one in January and then another in February. And that February one was my first mountain one. This was in the mountains of West Texas. And that got me excited about like mountains. I was like, this is a whole new world. Just the elevation gain, the temperature changes, just the wildness of it. I was like, this is really cool. And it's probably about that time that I found out about the Grand Slam of ultra running. I was like, I want to do this. Like, this is really cool. I call my Grand Slam, I call it the poor man's Grand Slam because Western States is some like, it's very difficult to get into that. So I was like, I'll do the best I can. By the end of 2020, yeah, by the end of 2020, I had started looking into getting into this Grand Slam. And I was like, well, I got to start applying because most of them you have to get in via lottery. So, end of 2020, I ran the Austin Rattler in Texas to try to qualify for Leadville because I was like, trying to figure out how to get into each of them, which order. The others were pretty much like lottery, but this one had the qualification system. So, end of 2020, at that Austin Rattler, I finished, I believe it was third place overall, and they only had slots for first place overall, or maybe, first place overall, and then first in my age group, and I was second in my age group. So I missed my qualifying spot by 1 year, or by one spot, but that year I'd already I was like, I want to do this. So I'd already gotten into Wasatch. I think Wasatch was kind of the only one I got into. So 2021, I went and ran Wasatch. I was like, this is great. I would do this again. And then end of 2021, ran Rattler again. This time I got second place overall, got my coin. And that's where I was like, okay, it's game on. We're doing Grand Slam. After that, it was pretty, to get into Vermont and Old Dominion, as long as you're like, I kind of honestly kind of forget how the selection process went, but I felt like it was very, if say you're on Grand Slam, they'd kind of prioritize you. Yeah, so I started with Old Dominion, and that one was one of the worst 100 milers I'd ever done. I did not do enough research going into it and didn't realize so much of it is on like road/crushed gravel. And I finished that one. And I guess the beginning of that year, I had done a 100 miler in January. I did one in February. I think February was my first sub 24. It was one in Texas. And I literally was just doing this like, I love 100 milers. I love the challenge. I love the experience. Like each of them is it's like a physical experience. It's a mental experience. It's an emotional experience. I was like, this is just fun. So I was kind of just signing up for a bunch of them. So I had that 100 miler in January. I did one in February. In March, I did this like multi-day event in Arkansas that by the end of the weekend was like a collective 100 miles. But then I took a little time off. April, May, I did some of the other racing stuff that I do, shorter distance, faster stuff, more strength focused. And so when I came to Old Dominion in June, I went back out there and I ran that 100 miler and I finished feeling terrible. My knees were weird, my ankles were rolled, and I kind of had this thought of like, I don't know if I still have like 100 miler in me. Like I started doubting everything, and I was like, this is not great. Kicking off the Grand Slam with this race that just kind of crushed me, and I didn't really enjoy it. It was kind of cool because this was one of the first more runnable ones I did as a better athlete, and so I finished with a good time. I think I finished somewhere in the top 5 women and like did well, but I was like, I was not it. But then following that up with Vermont 100, the exact opposite experience. Vermont just felt flowy. It was beautiful. I finished it in 22-ish hours. So I finished it like, early morning. I was able to like rinse off and sleep the rest of the night. I was like, this is great. I had gone into that with this thing on my knee, is like a bursitis, like a bursitis. I don't know how that works, but I had this like, pocket of fluid on my knee going into this race, and I was like doubting everything. And by the end of that race, I was like, I feel amazing. I'm invincible. This is great. So that's kind of the energy that I brought into Leadville the first time. I was also kind of fresh to Colorado, so I was like, this is my home, and I loved Leadville. For me, like coming into, well, the start was neat. This girl that I met through a 100 miler several years ago, Sierra, I call her my 100 miler bestie. We've kind of done several of the same 100 milers. So Leadville, we started out the first marathon. We ran it together and we were just chatting, having fun. And at that point, she kind of dropped off. We were like, we probably ran that too fast, but we'll see. She slowed down some, and I was like, it's on. Coming through Twin Lakes, seeing all the people there, and I was surprised at like, I had a couple people there. Corinne, a couple friends had come up, but just seemed like so many people. And I've, in these 100 miles that I've done, you're kind of on your own, doing your own thing. But yeah, headed up Hope Pass, hit the top of Hope Pass. There's a little bit of rain as I was going up Hope Pass, but then at the top it cleared up and I could see back to Twin Lakes. And then the views on the other side of Hope Pass were amazing. So dropped down into Winfield. I felt like the climb back over Hope's Pass was like more fun. The view was better. The weather was better. I was just like having a great time, enjoying myself. And then dropping down into Twin Lakes, I love running downhill. And I was like flying past people. I was like, this is the greatest. Just having a great time. It ended up raining that night. So heading out of Twin Lakes, I remember hitting a good bit of rain. So it's kind of like a dreary night. But then it cleared up and you could see all the stars. I was like, it's just kind of magical. So I finished that. I just looked it up the other day. 24:18 was my finish time there. And I was like, this is amazing. I got to come back. Yeah, finished out with Wasatch. And that was, you get the big eagle for the Grand Slam. And it was just, a great year in 100 milers for me.
That's amazing. And you locked in that big buckle for Leadville.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we got to go back a little bit. So I'm really curious about your history with sport, like growing up, and then like what made you, it seems like you kind of just skipped over. It's like you ran 150K, 150 miler, and then you're like, I'm all in on 100. So tell us about like sports you did before you started running, and it looks like you also still continue to do many other sports. It looks like you're pretty active in high rocks, which is a sport I learned about now that I work with the feed, and we sponsor some high rocks athletes, and so it just looks like you're very versatile and do a lot of different sports. So tell us a little bit about just your athletic background.
Okay, athletic background. I did not grow up doing sports. I ran a little bit, but really not conventional, like not any organized running. I would run a 5K once a year because my dad got free entries through his business. Growing up, I was like, when a large family, I was homeschooled. We lived on some property out in Texas, and I feel like I just kind of grew up being a kid and did zero organized athletic anything.
Wow.
It wasn't until 19 I did, so almost 10 years ago now, I had seen a bunch of friends on Facebook doing these obstacle course races, and I was like, let me go try one. So like Tough Mudder Spartan. So I went and did it was like a 12-mile Tough Mudder. I just did it like the open wave. I did it with my sisters. And I went into it like everybody talked about like this is a big deal. And I was like, everybody's walking this because, I was just kind of doing it for fun. I was like, this isn't a big deal. But then the following year, I was like, well, Spartan's harder. I tried a Spartan, and then Spartan got me in because they have the 3 different race distances. So I started with the longest distance, but I was like, they call it a trifecta if you do all 3 of them. So I went ahead and did the other 2 distances, and that was going to be it. But I talked to somebody at one of those races, and he talked about how like, oh, people take this really seriously. They travel around the world for this. And again, I was kind of like, eh. But he also said like, oh, the longest distance you can do, they call it their ultra, you can do that course twice. And I was like, that sounds nuts. But in my head, I guess this also kind of happened, at night. I was 19 at the time, and I'd moved out east to Virginia to try to do horses full time. I had worked with horses a little bit, always wanted to work with them, always wanted to ride them. And living out in Virginia, I was working for this barn, I was doing some showing, and realized very quickly that that was not my sport. I don't have the money. I don't have the background to like succeed, especially in that specific world. So that combined with doing a couple of Spartans and like, this is kind of fun running around in the mud, and running is more fun when you can do some obstacles. I came back to Texas and did my very first ultra was a 50K Spartan race. So it's, 30-ish miles, but with a bunch of obstacles in it. 0% prepared for that. I had only just found shoes that fit me. Like I'd done several Spartan races since then, and the shoes that I had, like I lost all my toenails, and somebody's like, you should get bigger shoes. So it's just a very like this whole kind of like, well, I kind of want to like try these things because they're kind of fun. No idea what I was doing. But I finished this 50K, And from there, I was like, and I told myself going into it, I could walk the whole thing and finish it. I did not walk the whole thing. I ran the first lap very hard. And then the second lap, I was dying the entire time. My hips, like I couldn't move my legs normally, but I still like kept moving. Ended up finishing in third place, and I was kind of like, this was cool. Let's do more. So 6 months later, I did a 50 miler because I was like, well, if I can do 50K, I can do 50 mile. And then that summer, I went out and to this Habanero 100. They're in South Texas, and I saw people running it. At the time, I was like, I love being in the heat. I love this because it's warm. This is great. I want to come back and run the 100 milers. Following year, I think I did a 50K the next spring. And then, yeah, that year I did the 100. And it was to me, it was very much well, if I can do this, what else can I do? And that's kind of what got me there. I did that 100 miler, and yeah, it just like changed me as a person, like what I knew about myself and what was possible, what I was capable of. And I guess it also like I was in an abusive relationship at the time, and that triggered a divorce, like kind of completing that 100 miler. So I feel like it was kind of part of this formative point of like I'd been in a really rough situation, and this 100 miler in some ways like it completely changed my life, and in some ways kind of saved it, like just gave me a whole different perspective on everything. So I think combine like the physical challenge, but also like the mental and emotional growth that happened during it is kind of what got me hooked, really. Yeah. And so then I pretty quickly like, what else could I do? I did several more in Texas before venturing like, oh, I want to go into other states. So I went and did I Am Tough in Idaho. I did Wyoming Range 100, and then did the Grand Slam. I was like, let's do it. My goal is I want to do 100 milers, and I want to do one in each state. So
that's amazing.
I'm
so
like,
okay, I'm starting to piece this together a little because the girl that you mentioned was Sierra DeGroff, no?
Yeah.
So you're heavily influenced by this other person who's also a crazy 100 miler who does like she's on my Air Viper racing team, and so I know
Right.
a little bit, and she does, she races a ton, so that I mean is starting to come together just a little bit. But where did High Rocks come into play on all this?
Well, so at the same time, when I came back from Virginia, realized the horses are not for me. Let's try this running thing. I got connected with a gym there in Houston, Texas. And I very much like that. I very much like give credit to that gym for like establishing like who I am as an athlete. They had a big focus. The guy that started it got into fitness because of obstacle course racing. And so his whole gym ethos was centered around this like performance-based goals instead of aesthetic or, like, yeah, it was basically all on like performance. Like you want to be able to do something versus just look a certain way or weigh a certain amount or whatever. So starting going to that gym, I knew nothing about fitness whatsoever, but they had a very balanced approach to like running development, strength development, and also a lot of mobility. And so starting to like learn, that was like my foundation of fitness, period. And it gave me a strong foundation, like as I was becoming a runner, like learning anything and everything about running, I knew nothing. I was also building a very strong, like functional strength foundation, while at the same time so much like focus on like healthy movement and mobility. So when High Rocks is like I'm sure more and more people are hearing about it, but it's like a functional fitness competition that's running combined with light CrossFit is what I call it, where it's like CrossFit-esque, but very light.
A lot of push and pulls and walls.
Yeah, a lot of just functional movements that kind of like feels like CrossFit, but you don't have to spend years getting good at Olympic weightlifting. So, it was founded in Germany, and it came to the States in 2020. And my thought was kind of like, oh, like this kind of fits in. Like I can run and I also do weights. So like, let's try it. And I actually did my first High Rocks 2 weeks after that first mountain 100 miler, like my third 100 miler. 2 weeks later, I did a High Rocks and was like, this is great. I can be strong and fat or like, and run for a long distance. So it very much then influenced my, like, I don't want to be like an ultra runner. And I think a lot of that comes too from like no sports background. It's not like, oh, I played soccer or I was this or I was that. I was just like, I'm Kris. Like I can kind of be or do, and I am going to be and do whatever I want. And it very much triggered this, like, I love running long distances, 100 milers in the mountains, but there was something really fun about the challenge. And like, it's kind of on the High Rocks environment is very much like big energy, like it's just a whole different culture. But I kind of like the balance that it gave of like, okay, these long 100 miler runs in the woods, and then these like going to new cities and doing this like very fast paced, intense, like high effort competition that's like an hour long. Yeah. So, and then from then it's kind of been trying to balance like, well, I want to run hundreds, but I also don't want to have 100 milers in my legs when I'm trying to do a high rocks. And how do you fit all of that in? And
yeah, that was going to be my question was talk a little bit about how the training for both of those either complement each other or in some ways conflict. It sounds like to me like maybe you think CrossFit would definitely conflict based on just how much you would have to lift and do more, but High Rocks is maybe more functional, and maybe maybe people should be considering this type of training more so to complement their running.
yes, absolutely. Well, and that comes back to my first experience in a gym was like, okay, run, but also strength train because you need to strengthen your muscles, and also huge focus on mobility. Like I went years completely injury free while doing all these things because I feel like I'd established healthy movement patterns. Yeah, but I have found like um, basic leg strength is absolutely essential to running. Like I cannot imagine not strength training. Actually hanging out with Sierra where we go and like run 10 miles in the morning and that's it. And she's doing like 100-mile weeks, but I'm like, when are you working out? Like doing any kind of like strength, like slower strength movements. Yeah, I think it's very and I mean again, like I'm not trying to specialize in any one thing. I want to be like I'm focusing on like longevity and like ability. Like I want to be able to throw myself into anything. So for somebody who like wants to go win Badwater, okay, like focus on your running. But I want to be able to like complete and do fairly well at 100 milers. Like I'm not there just like chasing cutoffs. I'm there to, do the best that I can. But then also I think I've appreciated the balance of like also I spend almost every day, almost every day of the week also moving some weights around, doing something like on the machines, the erg and the ski, doing something at like a high aerobic level. And yeah, I have just, sometimes I'm like, well, is it just because I'm developing as an athlete? Like all of this is helping, but I have definitely like the faster I run, the stronger I get, the faster I run. And I've just found it to be very, like a very symbiotic relationship. Like they both feed into each other. And part of it is the polarizing of it. Like I can, spend all winter focusing on the gym and getting really good at High Rocks. And then for the summer, like I'm just out in the mountains running miles. And like,
Yeah.
I appreciate the balance between those.
Do you work with a coach at all, or do you coach yourself?
Pretty much self-coached. The gym that I go to, like we have group classes, so there is some coaching there. But I do my own running, my own. I call the shots. And that's what I prefer.
That's awesome. Hey, I'd love to chat a little bit about the Barkley here. You are the 2-time defending champion of the Barkley Fall Classic, which is an entry race into what Laz and the others call the Big Barkley. And before you answer this question and talk a little bit about what like inspires you about Barkley and kind of that journey, I'd like to read a little paragraph from the Barkley Fall Classic Ultra sign up page, which I think does a pretty good job. If you're familiar with Barkley, the Barkley Fall Classic is a single loop, but it does say, at the Barkley Fall Classic, success is not guaranteed. It might even be considered unlikely. Fully a third of the aspiring entrants will come up with some good reason not to be at the start line when the cigarette is lit, and who can blame them? At the Barkley Fall Classic, your very best is not good enough. It takes something a little more than that. So more than half of those that have the guts to toe the line will not finish the 50K. It's not for everyone. So that just gives you a little flavor of what's to come. So talk a little bit about the Barkley Fall Classic, obviously competing there, but what about the Barkley inspires you?
Well, first I'd say the Barkley Fall Classic and the big Barkley Marathons are two very different things. And that's part of what I love about it. I actually, 2019 was the first time I ever heard of it. And I had a friend that had gotten in, or no, he had done it the year before. And when registrations opened for 2019, he's like, you should try this. It's really cool. And if you win, you get a golden ticket to the big Barkley. And I was like, Googling, what is all this? So I went ahead and applied. I got in 2019. 2019 again was a rough year. And towards the end of 2019, I was doing a lot. I mean, I ran the Barkley Fall Classic the first time. It was like 3 or 4 weeks after that first 100-miler. And it was just I was just doing a lot of, uprooting and kind of like starting to rebuild like who I am as a person and all these different things. And my first experience out there, well, first of all, Barkley Fall Classic, like approximately 500 people run it versus 40 at the Barkley Marathons. And it's very interesting to see a lot of the people that run it are familiar with the Barkley Marathons. Like that's the reason they run it. And so like the obsession levels are high, but the athlete levels there's a large range of them. So you go out there and you get all kinds of people that have either, like been a high school athlete and they're like, I wanted to try an ultra, so I signed up for this. Or you have, of course, people that come from France and mostly France, I'm sure other places, but they're like, this is the dream race. They come out here, they spend 2 weeks and they're coming to try to win it and get into the Barkley Marathon. I went into it the first time like, okay, this is cool. Let's try this. And it was a beatdown. I actually recently found the post that I made after that race, and I was like, wow, that really like ran me through it. That was my first race like with any kind of elevation, because I was, I just started running in South Texas, went here, and I was like, hills, elevation. They talk about that a lot because that's a lot of what the race is. And I told myself after that, I was like, cool, that was it. I'm done. One time. I finished, I think I was kind of top 10 female, but I attribute that mostly to like having run a few Spartan races, and Spartan, like you're kind of off trail. It's a little more of like the rugged side of ultra competing stuff. But then 2020 came around, and my thought, by then now I'm learning more about the Barkley Marathons. And I was like, I do not deserve to be there. I have no right to be there. I will not be applying. Like, there's no reason I should be there. But when 2020 rolled around and with all the COVID restrictions, they said for the Fall Classic, they were like, we're only going to have previous finishers allowed to come back. And so since I had finished in 2019, it was open to me, and it was a much smaller field. I was like, well, like maybe, sure, like I'll go back. That was kind of a fun challenge, but then I'm a better runner. So I went back in 2020, and that time, yeah, the way they started it, basically people with the faster finisher times started last. So I started at the very back of the field, and it was this weird experience of like, I'm in like last place right now. And I had a fun day of just like literally like counting passes of like, okay, well now I'm, third from last place, fourth from last place. And I worked my way up the field. And then towards the end, I think we did Rat Jaw twice that year. And then you had to, run down into the finish basically. And at the top of Rat Jaw, somebody was like, oh, you're in like, I think I was third place for women. And I was like, really? That's kind of cool. So that gave me a bit of like, all right, like I'm going to say, because I just been like working hard all day, but I didn't know. So I ended up booking it on that last mostly downhill. I passed the girl that was in third, and I ended up finishing like 5 or 6 minutes in front of her because I was running hard. But since I had no idea where I was in the field, because I hadn't been running with the field the whole day, like we were all kind of on our own, I finished in second place by only 2 minutes. And that definitely lit something of like, okay, I think I'm good at this. This was really fun, and I want to come back. 2021 and 2022, I didn't get in on the initial selection, because a lot of people drop out and you'll get in last minute, but I ended up planning stuff for those weekends. So I didn't run in 2021 and 2022, but then I came back in 2023 knowing that like I finished in second place by 2 minutes. I can win this. And I ended up winning that year, which was really cool. Like, and that kind of gave me a realization of like, oh, now I'm in the big Barkley. Started doing a lot of homework that year. Again, like I feel like a lot of people come from obviously like a huge ultra running background, at least a navigating or an orienteering background. something I was kind of like, all right, got a lot of homework here. But I ended up tearing my meniscus in early 2024. So I wasn't able to run that first year. And because I dropped out so late, they were like, we can't give you because a lot of times if you defer, you give them enough notice, you can get in the next year. Anyway, so I came back and then, so a lot of 2024 was spent like taking care of this meniscus injury and figuring out how to run again and all the things. That was a very growing experience. But I was like, I think I can come back for the Fall Classic. Came back for the Fall Classic. Didn't really know what to expect, but again, I was like, I'm good at this. Let's give it, let's give it a all. Ended up, and I think the first year that I won it, I finished third overall. The second year that I won it, I was second overall. So won again in 2024, and then it's, now I'm like, okay, now I'm really in for Big Barkley. Yeah, so that like I didn't go into the Fall Classic like knowing about the Barkley, this is it.
Yeah.
But through the years, it kind of built up. And then being out there this spring was a huge eye-opening experience. Like I knew it was on a different level. I did not realize how much of a different level it was on. Like, I do a lot of elevation. I like to just spend all day outside and like, 1 hour miles, like, sure, like, good elevation, that's what you're taking. But just the absolute, like, you start on a little trail and then all of a sudden you're just off trail. It's like, okay, go up to the top of there and then go down there. Zero trail whatsoever. And like I conceptually knew this, but experiencing it was one of those, like, this is a lot. So I did great, the first like couple big climbs, finding the books, there's lots of people out there. But I started realizing like 5 loops of this and like, this is hard. Yeah, I made it about halfway through, got turned around, lost, couldn't find a book, ended up heading back after that. So it was a very like anticlimactic result. But just being there was very much like, this is a whole different ballgame. This is not something that like, okay, you put in enough miles, you make sure your food's right. You're like, it's a whole different like realm of ultra running.
It's a next level of preparation,
It
and you can be as prepared as you want, and then have something like Max King happen where he broke his leg on one of the, or
I think he
messed up his knee a little bit on
MCL or something. Yeah, on like the first downhill. Yeah,
exactly.
But that's what you're getting. Right, that's what you get when you're just going straight down a, Tennessee mountain.
Well, it's hard.
So
I think it's hard to also describe because even the documentaries and even seeing the visuals, I don't think you really can. I've never been there personally, but it just I don't think ever does it justice of how difficult the terrain actually is.
I can attest. I've watched all the documentaries. I've seen all the things. I've run the Barkley Fall Classic several times. I'm familiar with the park, whatever. It is just a totally different thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
okay, we got to.
It was a very cool experience.
Leadville questions real quick here. All right. So, what are your, if you're willing to share, your goals for this year's race?
Always finishing. I want to finish faster than the last time.
Nice.
So sub 24.
Nice.
Maybe 23, 22. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then are you going to use crew and who are your crew and pacers? Do you do pacers, and are you kind of assembling a team to go out there?
Yeah, I'm pretty low key. I don't. Yeah, I guess I like don't pursue this like on a big level, and I just don't. Yeah, I've done plenty like out of state. Old Dominion. I had a local friend that like came out and was there at the start and finish line. Vermont, I ended up having somebody like when I go out of state, like I know how to do drop bags and I know how to stay awake at night. I do have a friend that's coming out. She wants to come run the last 30 miles with me. So I do have a pacer. And she'll sort of crew. Maybe I'll see her at some point. But yeah, my friend Bridget is going to come pace me. And my kind of traditions around it, it all depends on how I feel. But the last time that I ran it, I'm knocking out all the 14ers. I'm big on like peaks and summits. So the day before, I did a Mount Massive summit on Friday morning, ran Leadville, and then my recovery was Mount Sherman. So I'm loosely hoping to keep up that tradition to get a couple 14ers in.
That's taking like a run streak to the next level. Like it's not just a mile after the day after the 100. It's a 14er. Like that's pretty epic.
Yeah, And to me, that's where it comes down to like, well, I do this because I want to be able to do 14ers, and I do 14ers because I want to do this. So to me, it all kind of feeds into it. And yeah, I think it's more fun that way instead of just spending
Well, you can just keep applying for Hard Rock, and then you can lock out, and then you can knock out handies on the course.
I really want to get into Hard Rock. I'm down to the last. Say what?
You have qualifiers. Have you entered the lottery?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've entered the lottery every year. Still haven't gotten in. I was loosely saving handies because I'm almost done doing all the 14ers here in Colorado.
Nice.
And I was loosely saving handies for Hard Rock, but since I didn't get in this year, I'll have to do handies without Hard Rock, and then maybe we'll come back and do it with Hard Rock again sometime.
It can be a Hard Rock recon if you do it this year.
I was just telling my boyfriend about like soft rock. I was like, maybe we should soft rock. That'd be really fun.
That's where I'm in Uray right now, and
oh, okay.
A long history with family history with the race, and so but I hadn't actually done handies until a couple years ago when I paced at Hard Rock, and it's a cool mountain. It's it's a great one. So I think you should do it before.
Yeah. Well, at this rate I am, because I'm finishing up with 14ers this year, and
nice.
Still no Hard Rock.
Have you hit Capital yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Congrats on.
I did Capital last summer. I loved that. I really like being up high, and I like the scrambles. So all the ones that like Capital, I was a little scared of. It was following a season that there was a lot of unfortunate events there, and so I had like a very healthy respect of it. And I actually, right before a big bike ride out there-ish, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to Capital. I just need to not think about it and just go do it. Obviously, like smart, like not, So I went out there and I did it, and I actually kind of loved it. I had perfect weather at the top. It was beautiful. So yeah.
That's awesome, because my brother's actually done every single 14er except for Capital.
Yeah. Really?
He hasn't gotten it because he's been weathered out twice, and then one time they had to turn around because someone in their crew was kind of having vertigo stuff. Still has eluded him, but that's awesome. You got the hard one out of the way. One of the
yeah.
Awesome.
And the traverses, to me, like those were the fun ones. I got those knocked out early. The maroon traverse, but
nice.
The last few.
Love it. Corinne, should we hit these final two questions? You got anything else you want to ask Kris?
No, I mean, it's awesome. We could probably talk to you all day, but we have.
I know.
You guys will be out at Leadville, I assume.
We will.
Are you running it, Russell?
No.
I'm not running it this year. I'm pacing this year.
We're both pacing the same individual this year. We've both run it once in the past. So.
Okay, very cool.
Go ahead, Russ. What you got?
I was just going to go to one of the questions. I think we got kind of an answer on another one, but we'll still ask it anyway. So you have your friend, you said Bridget, coming out to pace you. So what piece of gear, since you are allowed to mule at Leadville, what piece of gear are you most excited to let Bridget carry for you for the last 30 miles?
I didn't mule last time. I don't think I'll mule this time. So I'm sorry. That's a very unsatisfactory answer. But there's nothing that I would want to burden her with, and I don't have any extra stuff that I don't want to carry. But I may throw her back. I mean,
your water or anything like the water weight. You just want to do it. You just want to carry it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I always just have my pack, and my pack is pretty fine.
Nice. Solid.
Yeah, I have not thought about that. So sorry, I have no answer.
Well, you can consider it when you're on that section and you can see or know where the next women are ahead of you. You can decide, hey, I can have Bridget carry some of my water. Maybe we can get a little closer. So
I'll just throw my pack at her and take off.
Yeah.
That's right. Carry the whole pack. I've done that.
That's awesome.
Okay. And the last one is, what will you do to celebrate a successful performance at Leadville in 2025?
Well, I think I sort of answered this one. Hopefully I'm Mount Sherman.
Another 14er.
Other than that, I mean, that's kind of the way I celebrate. I'm ready to get back outside and see something fun, see some cool views.
Awesome.
Well, Kris, we are super excited to see you out at Leadville and to see you competing in the 100-miler. And you just seem like you talk about the mountains, and it just seems like you are happy out on the trail and up high in the mountains, and it seems to be your happy place. So we are excited to see you out there, and best of luck to you in these last few weeks of training. And yeah, best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
It was great to get to know you a little bit, and we'll be cheering for you out there.
Yes, I will maybe run into y'all out there. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see you for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. See you out there.
Thanks.
Oh,